Hello and welcome back to another episode of Get Intentional with Mary. I'm your host, Mary, and I'm thrilled to have a very special guest with me today. Joining us is the incredible Dr. K Tap, a passionate advocate for a leading plant-based lifestyle and holistic health and wellness. In today's episode, Dr. K will share her inspiring story of resilience and determination. She'll take us on her journey from facing chronic kidney disease during college to becoming a successful medical professional and a leading voice in the holistic health industry. We'll dive into the importance of understanding our body's needs and becoming our own advocates for better health. Dr. K reveals how her plant based diet played a vital role in prolonging the life of her transplanted kidney and how she's been able to maintain an active lifestyle, work, and travel. We'll also learn about Dr. K's morning routine and her refreshing lemon, ginger, and honey tea, which sounds amazing to me, along with her delicious plant based meals throughout the day. She's even going to break down exactly what should be on your plate. So if you've been wondering about how it is that your plate should look when you're trying to transition into a plant-based diet, or simply want to improve your intake of fruits and vegetables and grains, listen to this episode. But we're not stopping there because Dr. K will also share her insights on the importance of self-care, gratitude, and setting intentions to start the day off right. Additionally, we're going to uncover the challenges that she faced during her dialysis treatments, the importance of patient education, and how she balanced her health journey with her studies, extracurricular activities, and work. So get ready for an incredible, inspiring, and transformative episode as we get intentional with Dr. K. By the way, thank you for being here, and I highly encourage that you share this episode because we're not only going to be discussing Dr. K's experience, but you will also see how her mindset, her determination, and resilience can inspire you and the people you love. So go ahead and share this episode. Grab your cup of tea, your coffee, a blanket, whatever you need, and enjoy the episode. Welcome to Get Intentional with Mary. This podcast is for the busy woman who appreciates working hard and also playing hard. This show will focus on lifestyle, entrepreneurship, wellness, amazing interviews, and what every woman needs to live a successful and fulfilled life. Be sure to subscribe, share with friends, and leave a review. Now let's get on with today's topic. Hello, Dr. Catherine, and welcome to Get Intentional with Mary. I'm super excited to have you here because you have such a powerful story to share. And in this podcast, I really love sharing powerful stories with meaning and that inspire other women, especially, to live their best life. So please go ahead and introduce yourself in your own words.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Mary. I'm so happy to dive into our conversation today. So, hi, everyone. I am Dr. Catherine Tapper, passionately known as Dr. K Tap, and I am a board certified family medicine physician, as well as a holistic health and wellness coach, and just transitioned into that about a year ago. Very, very passionate about it. And my mission is helping women who are struggling with a chronic illness to really regain that control of their health again so that they can then thrive within their body, mind, and spirit so that they can then thrive within the rest of their lives.
I love the concept of thriving because a lot of the times we think of surviving, those survival skills, but we don't just want to survive. We want to be able to thrive through everything that life throws at us. And I think that the word thrive too has such a positive connotation because there's a certain amount of joy and peace, I think, that I attach to that word of
Mhm.
thriving. So tell me about your practice first, because you went into traditional medicine. What was it that brought you to medicine to begin with? And I'm asking you this because I was also pre-med in college, and my dream from the time that I can remember, the earliest dream that I ever had was to become a doctor. And it didn't work out for me, but I'm always in awe when it comes to speaking to other medical professionals and how it is that they made it through the process. So please tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So I grew up in Jamaica and I had a wonderful pediatrician. So I think that was the first example of, going in that direction of becoming a physician. And I also loved dancing. So I was intrigued by the human body, how it moved and everything. And I also loved the sciences. I was a science junkie. so to speak. So learning about the anatomy, learning about biology, chemistry, physics, learning about all of those different sciences coupled with my fascination with the human body, as well as having a really great mentor at the beginning of my health. I think all of that combined made me very interested in becoming a physician. And on top of that, I almost forgot one of the most important things is service, right? I think a
Yeah.
lot of us go into what we're doing because we are passionate about it and we're also giving something to other people. And the role of service was very early in my childhood, where my mom would be a part of Kiwanis Club. I don't know if you know about that or
Yeah.
about Kiwanis Club. Yeah, so we had that in Jamaica as well. And I would go with her to whether it's coordinating events or volunteering, donating things. So giving to other people without expecting anything in return is one of the core values that I learned at a very early age as well. So I think that also was a part of my pursuit of becoming a physician.
Yeah, because I think that at the core of it, being a physician is all about you providing a certain level of care for somebody who cannot do that for themselves.
Mm,
And when you say that, like service without expectation, it's a beautiful thing. So it takes very special people to get to that level of service without expecting anything. And I know that in the US, the medical profession, it does have its ups and downs. And with insurance being what it is and all of that, it can be pretty frustrating. And I know that the friends of mine who did make it to medical school, I remember one of them telling me, Mayor, I'm so glad that you didn't go to medical school because it is a nightmare. And I can understand that, but I believe that as long as you have that heart of service at the core
mm,
of everything that you're doing, everything else is tolerable. It's
mhm.
just the way that it is. It's like trying to get to your favorite concert or event and dealing with the traffic. You still have
Right,
your eye on the prize, but
exactly.
you have to deal with all of these other things.
Mm,
So now that you've been practicing medicine, I know that you had a medical issue yourself.
mm.
So tell us a little bit about that and how that brought you to think differently when it came to traditional medicine.
So I've always thought about health in a holistic way. And I truly believe a part of that had to do with we learned about herbs, and we're not that type of culture to run to the doctor when something goes bad within our health right away, right? We try to figure out things on our own based on what has been passed down in our ancestry and what's just a part of our culture. So having that integrative, holistic approach was at the core of who I am from the very beginning. And I came up to the state to start college. And that is when I became ill. I had always been healthy before. And I found out that I had end stage chronic kidney disease, which meant one of two things, right? Either I was going to have to be on dialysis for the rest of my life, or I would have a kidney transplant and just go about my life, right? And so I was 19 at the time. So I had just done 1 year of college. And at that time, I had to start dialysis right away. So you can just imagine just starting college, new
Wow.
to this culture called the Americas, right? And now I have a new diagnosis, right? Luckily and thankfully, my mom, we we travel everywhere together. So we both migrated to the US together. And we had a lot of support from friends and family and my college as well. I went to a liberal arts school. It was less than 500 of us. And when I tell you, I don't think there's any other college that would do this. I would have professors who would drop me and pick me up from my dialysis sessions,
Wow.
just to name one of the things that, they were really caring and supportive on my journey.
Where was this school? Because that sounds beautiful to me.
Yeah. So this was Oxford College of Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. So it's a 2 year college. That's actually where Emory University started from at that campus.
So you went to a small college that was very close-knit and where they really cared about you and your well-being. And you're right, my daughter's gonna be turning 19 next month. actually,
Mm.
in a little bit of a month and 2 days. Actually, she will be 19, and I can't even imagine her going through something like this. And for you to be in a new country and to have to adapt to the culture and now dealing with that diagnosis and then having to go and sit there because sometimes people don't realize how long dialysis is. So, can you give us a little bit of an insight on that? Like, what is the process like for those who don't know?
Right. Really, really great question. I'm so happy you asked that. So at 19 and starting dialysis, it was very traumatic, I will tell you. I had a transplant and I'm back on dialysis now, and my experience now is completely different from my experience then. And I think a lot of it just has to do with my perspective of life. But I will tell you at that time, the reason why it was traumatic, and it's interesting, I'm kind of finishing up my book right now and I'm going into detail about this experience that I'm going to share with you. I remember after I had dialysis within the hospital and I was transitioning to doing dialysis in the clinic 3 times a week, 4 hours in a chair each time, right? And my first time walking into that clinic, it was like a dark cloud. Like I was walking, trying to walk through a dark cloud. It was this sense, I've never felt this before. It was this sense of despair and hopelessness
Mm,
surrounded by in this room. And the way how it is set up is you have the nursing station in the center, and then you have dialysis chairs all around.
mm,
And for me, that was a shock. I thought I was going to have a private room. I was
yeah,
going to do dialysis by myself because, it's a personal thing, right? And
right.
I had to get over that very quickly, that this is not something private. This is something that you have to just get accustomed to. And I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want to be, all of those different feelings that I was feeling while seeing everyone just look so humdrum, like
Mm,
there's no more life in them. That is how I felt. And on top of it, many of them, it was in downtown Atlanta, and many of them were African Americans.
mm,
And while I was going through that experience, I decided that I was not going to feel like that. I think that that experience gave me the motivation to continue. It was confirmation and motivation to say, you know what, I'm not going to be depressed about this. I didn't want to be defined by my diagnosis. I really believe that that was the turning point for me to say, you can do this. You can be a physician. You can do whatever you want to do. And that mindset shift, that experience, I think that's really what made me continue to do what I'm doing.
and that's huge because at that age, how many kids because technically you're still a kid at 19, you're still a teenager.
Right.
How much awareness does one have at that age? Because I remember I was a little all over the place, going with the flow sometimes, just having fun. But I
Mhm.
guess a lot of that also has to do with your upbringing and the fact that you did have your mom there and that emotional support, which is massive. So kudos to her. Is your mom still around?
No, she is not in the physical sense,
Mhm, okay, okay.
but you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. She has been my spiritual guide from probably before birth. And me being consciously on a spiritual journey really allowed me to do what I was able to do and I am able to do now. That spiritual relationship, that spiritual connection, yes, that is the game changer
Mhm.
for sure.
That's beautiful. To me, it's all about really having that awareness. So one thing that we had mentioned before was that it's very difficult for young people to have that level of awareness
Mhm.
because you're still in the moment, you still aren't independent. A lot of kids at that age, they're still so dependent on their parents, and even though they might have gone away to college, it's a whole different experience, but at least they have something to fall back on. So they may not feel like the responsibility is fully on their shoulders to decide what's best for them in the future. They're relying on other people to do that. So to me, I feel it's so refreshing and enlightening that you at that age, with all of this that you had going, you had that level of awareness. But sometimes it does take a traumatic experience to bring us to this place, to kind of jolt us into growing up a little bit and having that emotional maturity, that emotional growth. So when you went into that whole experience with your dialysis, do you remember how you felt after the first session? I'm sure this is probably in your book, but I'm just curious to see where your mind was at once you made it through that first session.
Mhm. Mhm. So just to clarify, I did have a few sessions in the hospital. So this was the first experience in the clinic as an outpatient, right? Having dialysis as an outpatient. So after that experience, my mind was just was so laser focused on making sure that I was going to fulfill my dream, that it was like go, 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 go. I'm not that person as much right now, to tell you this. I'm like, how did I do that? So that meant that I believe it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday at that time, I would have my dialysis sessions. My teachers were okay with me not showing up to class. I was committed to not take any incompletes or to take any time off from my classes. And because of that support, again, I couldn't do this alone, right?
Yeah.
Because of that village that was there, I was able to do my classes, go to dialysis, and still do my extracurricular activities, do work study. I'm like even shocked saying this, that I even did this. I love dancing, so I was the choreographer of a few dance teams, the whole thing. So I was still living my life, but it was just an extra thing that I had to do. I like to think of it as having a baby. It's an
Mm.
extra responsibility that I have to do. This is an extra responsibility of my health that I have to do. I have to take my medicines at this time, right? Just like you have to feed the baby at this time, right? I have to go to the doctor at this time. I need to take treatment at this time. So I really viewed it very objectively and less emotionally, if that makes sense.
Because we are emotional beings.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't like something, we go into that 3-year-old who wants to throw a tantrum because they're not happy with the circumstances.
I don't
But
want
then,
it.
yeah, we don't want to do it. But then what happens when we know that we can't really control the circumstance? We can only control how we react to the circumstance. So that's amazing. I love this. I love this conversation, and I hope that everyone who's listening is paying attention to how much mental fitness is required to get the things that you need to get done,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what's going on with your health. Because it's very easy to say, poor me, now I can't go to school. Now I can't participate in this thing. I can't dance. Look at me, and feel sorry for yourself, as opposed to persevering and thriving through all of that. That inner dialogue is huge. Now, let me ask you the next question, which is about actually getting into medical school and going through all of that. Tell us a little bit about that process.
So after I graduated from college, I decided, it's time to take some time off.
Oh,
So I took a couple of years
yeah.
to relax, get a little bit more medical experience, meaning I went to volunteer in Cayman in their healthcare system. I had a cousin who lived there, and prepare for the MCAT and all of that. Now, let me tell you, just preparing to go to medical school is a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
So it that in and of itself is an ordeal, especially mentally speaking. And so I knew that the way how I look at things is I want to make sure that I'm aligned with whatever I'm doing. I didn't use that word early, but I knew that's what it was. And I applied to a handful of medical schools that were in Georgia because I love Georgia. And I also applied to a few schools outside of that area based on their mission and vision, of their institution. And I came upon George Washington University, which had a 5-year program. Most medical schools have a 4-year program. And so that really enticed me because I was doing dialysis. I knew it was going to be very rigorous. And their 5-year program, they split it up where their first year split into 2 years. And so that would allow me to almost study part-time, so to speak. So it would be less taxing for me to do. And so I was drawn to that. And they also had an intern program, which I was also drawn to. And so I went there, I applied and everything, got an interview, and I knew that that was the place for me to go. And there were two instances, but there was one instance where I was being interviewed by a dean and I was being interviewed in her office. And as soon as I stepped into her office and sat on her couch, behind me was a picture of a dancer. And that's the exact same dancer picture that I have hung up in my house today.
Wow.
I couldn't have any more conversation. The whole interview process went extremely well. And you know, when you walk into a house and you're like, this is it, or
Yeah.
you meet the love of your life and you're like, this is it, I want to marry this person. That is how I felt as it pertains to that medical school. And I got in. So
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. That's beautiful. That's a great story. You walk in, it's like you belong there. It was meant for you. It was
mm,
waiting for you. What are the odds?
I know, right? Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you were still undergoing treatment during this whole process.
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
not until residency, family medicine residency at Mayo Clinic, my first year, that I was called early in the morning to get a transplant. And that was when I had my transplant at that time. Mhm.
Okay. So you had a transplant one time?
Yes, I had a transplant one time, and I had that for a good 7 years. And it was a couple of years ago that I have now been back on dialysis again.
Okay. So how is that process treating you this time around? You mentioned that it's different than the first time.
Yes, different because I'm different. I truly believe that that's what it's all about. Just being through the whole medical system from a patient's perspective, as well as from a physician perspective, I know how to take care of my health, eat right, all of those things. I'm more mindful and intentional about treating my health well. And so the process of doing dialysis based on that is completely different.
So let's talk about that now. Let's talk about how you having the medical scientific background, the traditional medicine background has impacted the way that you currently, I guess, practice medicine from a holistic standpoint. And what are some of the things that you keep standard, and where are some of the areas where you maybe go into a little bit of a different direction when it comes to your practice and how you treat your patients?
Great question. I truly believe that becoming a patient before being a physician has allowed me to be a better physician and a better person because I'm able to empathize and understand more where patients are coming from and how to communicate to them based on just where they are mentally and physically. I truly believe that. And so when I am talking with my patients, well, I'm not working in the clinic anymore, but when I used to talk with my patients, I would listen. And that's something that is missing based on how the healthcare system is set up. I just want to make it clear to our listeners and our viewers that the ways, majority of the time, the ways in which your doctor is interacting with you, including the time and the method, is because of how the healthcare system is set up. So there is a very short amount of time that you can in there with the physician. That's not because the physician wanted it that way.
Wow. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Because we all wonder sometimes we just went in for 5 minutes. And I always say that you have to be your best advocate when you go to the doctor for whatever reason. You have to really push a little bit more. And I believe that it's something that needs a little bit more attention because on both sides too. And you have to be assertive as a patient. You have to really fight for your right to health and for wellness. But a lot of the times, I do have to say that a lot of these patients, they don't already have a proper lifestyle to begin with. So they just take whatever the doctor says as what they have to do. But
Mhm.
for those who are listening, just really pay attention to how you feel and don't be afraid to ask questions. So, for you as a physician, how do you feel when people ask you questions? I'm sure that sometimes you get people who are just like, okay, they take whatever you say, but maybe you do have some patients who do like to dig a little bit deeper. How do you
Mhm.
handle that?
I love it. You know why? Because I am the type of person who wants to know why I'm doing something. If you tell me to do something, I'm not going to do it until I know why I'm doing it. There has to be a reason behind it. So for me, I welcome those questions because one, I want my patients to understand what's going on with their health, what's going on with their body. It makes complete sense, right? It just takes time. But for me, when I was working in the clinic, I would take that time because one, I'm a patient too. So I would want, you see how these things come together? I would want the doctor to explain to me why I am suggesting that they do this, why I think that they should eat more plant-based food because it's going to give them more energy. It has nutrients, it has fiber. Why calories in an apple is different from calories in a cookie.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because the more people are educated and understand what's going on in their bodies, I truly believe the more they say, "Oh, that makes sense,"
Yeah.
you know, and then hopefully make changes down the line. Some do, some don't, right? We're
Mhm.
all different. We all have our challenges and so forth. But understanding is so important. And I'm so happy that you brought up advocacy because you have to nobody's going to advocate for you. You have to advocate for yourself unless you talk to someone who is going to advocate on your behalf for whatever reason. But whenever you go to your doctor, you want to be prepared because you only have a short time period with your doctor. So if you have questions, just write them down.
Yeah. Bring all your questions. Now, let me ask you this about your lifestyle because you're a busy person.
Mhm.
You're very busy and you're also dealing with a medical issue that you have to live with.
Mm.
How are you taking care of yourself? Because if somebody as busy as you can do things the right way, maybe it'll inspire other people who may not be as busy or who maybe just don't know where to start with their wellness. So tell us about, for example, your morning routine and how you operate throughout the day.
I absolutely love this question, Mary. I will say before I answer that question that that was one of the reasons that I decided to no longer work in the clinic and to transition into holistic health and wellness coaching is because I needed to take care of me more. I was already burnt out and I was in the transition of going back on dialysis. And I actually went back to work after starting dialysis and I went back part time. And that was confirmation that it's really time to make a change and it's really time to take care of you and serve people in a different capacity. Still doing what I love, but just in a different way. So what I do in the morning is as soon as I wake up, before even opening my eyes, I give gratitude.
Mhm.
Gratitude is such a big part of my daily life. And so I make sure whether I'm going to write it down in a journal, just depends on how the day flows and what my mood is. I'll either write it down in a journal or I will just be mindful of what I am giving thanks for that day. And that leads into meditation for me. So there's no way I'm going to get up out of my bed or at least out of the house without being grounded and centered in meditation. This is something that I teach, and I think it's so important for us to connect with our true self before and set intentions before we go out into the world that has many distractions, many challenges, and that can easily get us off track. But if we are able to get centered at least one time at the beginning of the day, it is going to make a difference on how that day flows. So that is definitely something that I do. And I always try to get movement into my day as well. So whether I'm just going to walk, I like to call it a gratitude walk,
Yeah.
just be mindful, or I'm going to be doing yoga or some other movement as well. And then another part is I make tea. So I usually do ginger, lemon, and honey
Okay.
on coffee in the morning. So that's usually a part of my morning my morning bowl, as I like to call it.
Yes, I love the whole meditation piece too, because that's very similar to what I do in the morning. I don't get out of bed until I always say, thank you, God, for this day, or thank you, Father, for this day. And I go about my way because it's important to ground ourselves. And some people just go to bed stressed out and wake up stressed out, and they continue along that because it's so easy to just fall back into those same patterns. So I always like knowing what other people are doing and how they structure their day, but when I hear that somebody starts their day the same way that I start my day, it's like, "Okay, yeah, that's it. That's it." More people need to hear that because I'm not the only one. So I always love sharing that. Now, let's talk about your nutrition because undergoing dialysis treatment, these are things that you really did not do to yourself. You were young, all of these things happened, and unfortunately, sickness happens to people who are already healthy. So, tell us about your nutrition.
Absolutely. I always encourage people to follow a plant-based diet as much as they can. Now, not everybody's going to be vegan. I get it, right? But to eat more whole foods, we are living beings. And so it makes common sense for us to eat more living foods instead of foods that are packaged and processed and placed on a shelf. And I will tell you a story. So after I got my transplant, that was back in 2014, it wasn't the best experience, I will tell you. That was another traumatic experience, and that's a whole other conversation. The transplanted kidney didn't start working right away, so I had to go back on dialysis. That was one thing. There were many complications that happened after that transplanted kidney surgery. But I'm saying all of that to say that my kidney doctors didn't think that because of all of those complications, that transplanted kidney was not going to last very long. So we had that conversation over and over again. And I truly believe that one of the things that helped the longevity of my transplanted kidney was me being on a plant-based diet or more of a plant-based diet and making sure that I'm intentional about at that time I wasn't vegan at that time, but I was having less chicken, more fish, more fruits, more vegetables. And I strongly believe that that helps me to be off of dialysis as long as possible. And I truly believe that that is what allows me to experience life the way I do right now, being able to work the way that I work and do the things that I do. I'm still able to travel and all of that now. I'm not always energetic. Like yesterday, it was a really good example of I was tired the entire day. And what did I do? I rested. I listened to my body and I was able to rest. Why? Because I wasn't working for anyone else. I'm working for myself.
I wanna ask
Mhm.
you this because I'm sure some people are curious. You went from decreasing the amount of meat that you were eating, and now you're vegan, yes?
Correct. And
Okay.
I like to say 0.9% plant-based. and I put that because I don't like to really be in a box
Yes.
and be
Okay.
restricted. So, for example, if I go to Jamaica, which is where I'm from, and, and I'm going to have snapper, escovitch fish is what we call it, I'll
Yeah.
have that. You know what I mean?
So you're
But
still enjoying life through food, and I'm such a big foodie. I love food. I went vegan, actually, 100% vegan for 2 weeks, and I
mhm,
felt amazing.
mhm,
And then I kind of fell off that wagon, but I know how important it is to have a plant-based diet and to supplement accordingly when you're not getting the nutrients that your body needs for
mhm.
yourself and for the kids, especially as they're growing. But give us an example of a day's worth of meals for you. How do you start your day? What do you eat now that you're 99% plant-based? What does that look like for you?
Sure. So after I have my lemon, ginger, and honey tea, I will usually have either an acai bowl that I either make or purchase, or I'll have a smoothie. And so within the smoothie, well, let me back up. When you're having a plant-based diet, you want to make sure that you have a few things on your plate or in your bowl, right? You want to make sure that a quarter of your plate is fruits and or vegetables, which would be the other quarter. Green, right? So that would be for me, that would be brown rice or quinoa or rolled oats, right? Depending on the time of day. And then the other quarter would be protein. So for me, that would be legumes, peas, beans, nuts. Tofu would be in that category. Not a fan of it, but I'll eat it from time to time and so forth. So back to the smoothie. So the smoothie would have fruits and or vegetables. The grains would be some rolled oats, and then the protein would either be a protein powder or it would be some sort of nut butter. So that way I'm making sure that I get all the nutrients. Lunch/dinner, sometimes I will have a salad. So peas, beans would be the protein. Would have the lettuce or the veggies, tomatoes, cucumber. I will put fruits in there, raspberries, strawberries, and so forth. And then I may or may not have grains. But if I do have grains, then I would add either brown rice or quinoa. And that would be that. Okay. And then if I was going to have something cooked, then it would be roasted vegetables. It would be lentils. I may have sweet potato. And yeah, that's what it would be. Oh, and some avocado as well. Can't forget avocado.
Avocado is life, as I always say. Everything with avocado and fried plantains.
Oh my gosh, how could I forget? Yes, yes, yes. The fried plantain has to be there too.
Yeah, so you get your protein, your fiber, and your fat with every meal, regardless of whether or not you're 100% vegan or pescatarian or vegetarian. It's very important to have that balance. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Now, let's talk about your upcoming book. So tell us a little bit about why you're writing a book first. What brought you to that realization that, oh, maybe I should tell my story and put this in a book? So walk us through that process.
Yes. So I've always wanted to write a book. And that just stems from all of the lessons that I have learned over the past 20 years as it relates to really still living a fulfilling life despite having a diagnosis. Because I know a lot of people, they feel like their diagnosis has taken control of their body, their life. And I want people to know that they don't have to feel that way. They don't have to feel as if all hope is gone because there is. And so what I do is I walk them through 10 different steps that they can use for themselves in order to find that meaning again, in order to be empowered again, in order to live a fulfilling life. And a lot of that has to do with mindset shift.
So it all stems from that.
Does.
How long was that process for you of writing the book? Did you start with the idea and then begin to write little by little? Or did you one day say, okay, that's it. I'm going to rent a cabin in the woods and write my book?
Right. Great question. The writing process, I'm just about wrapping it up to send to the editor for it to publish in a couple months. And so I actually went through a writing program and they make it very easy to write. It's not about saying, okay, I'm just going to sit down and write a book. There is an easier way to write a book. And I'll just give you a tidbit. And that is to, think about obviously what you're going to write about, what you think the title is going to be, and give yourself a time to do it so that you're not procrastinating and saying, oh, okay, I'll do it later. No, say, okay, I'm going to think about this title and I'm going to push myself and give myself 5 minutes to think about the title and the subtitle. And then you want to break down, okay, 10 chapters. What are the titles of the 10 chapters that come to you right away? And then go from there. And then under each chapter, you think of maybe 5 to 6 different things that you want to talk about in each chapter. That way, it's like an outline of your book. So that's how you start. You start with the outline, and then from that, you fill in the details.
That makes it sound so much easier. This is why it's important to invest in programs because somebody out there already knows a little bit more than you do and can guide you into doing things the right way. And I'm sure in the process, you save a lot of money, but most importantly, you save time. And for me, it's admirable that on top of everything else that you have going on, that you decided to do this and you decided to take the time to tell your story and to empower other people as well through your story. And that's what leadership is all about and being a leader in your industry. So tell us about that. What does it take to become a leader in your industry now, and where do you see holistic health going in the future?
Being a leader, that's a continuous process that never ends. Still figuring that out myself. And that's how it should be, right? We are evolutionary beings and there's nothing stagnant in what we do. There's always something to learn. There is always something to grow through in order to glow through it. And so being a leader means that you have to be confident in what you're talking about. That is for sure. You have to be educated. You have to keep up the things that are going on around you, and you have to be confident, not only with what you're talking about, with who you are. And I'm very confident where that is concerned because people gravitate towards that. They feel your energy, whether you realize it or not. We feel people's energy. We are energy. And so that confidence as a leader shines through. Not only that, but as a leader, you also know that there's more to learn, which is pretty much what I said before. So as a leader, you're also a student. And that's also important to know. You don't know everything. And so it's important, as you mentioned before, to invest in that continuous learning process so that as a leader, you evolve as you are showing your audience how to evolve with you. So that's one thing that I would say. The other thing that I would say in terms of this holistic health and wellness industry, we know more now than we did about 10, 20 years ago. Thankfully, where the internet is concerned, right? And of course, there are pros and cons to everything. So you can't listen to everybody out there. So you have to do your research where it comes to reliable content because people will tell you some things and that will throw you completely off. And so there's just so much information as well coming from the internet. So what I would tell people is to make sure that you do your own research and listen to your intuition. Like, who do you gravitate towards? What is right, quote unquote, for one person may not be right for you or may not be aligned. That's the right word. May not be aligned with what you need and who you are. So I really encourage people to listen to their intuition, their instinct, because the world we live in does not embrace or encourage us to do so. And the way in which we do so is what I spoke about before, is that quiet time. You're not able to hear your intuition as loudly as you can if there's so many distractions that you are focusing on or that are around you. So that quiet time in the morning, at least, is so important because then you're saying, hey, I am receptive and I'm listening to, I'm taking the time to listen. I'm being intentional about making that connection. And you'll be so surprised how your day flows and how you're led in certain directions and how you might say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. It felt like magic or it felt like a miracle or it just felt so easy. And that's how life is supposed to be for the most part.
Yeah, because it all feels that it's within alignment. It's meant for us. It's authentic to us.
Yeah.
Now, I see a lot of medical professionals going into the coaching profession also. Do you see that as a growing trend in the future?
I do. I see it as a growing trend right now, actually. There are a lot, especially just the physicians and medical professionals that I know. I see that they are going into the coaching industry, whether it is for health and wellness or otherwise. I have a friend of mine who she's an ER doctor and she's doing money mindset coaching, you know? And I think a lot of that has to do again with how the healthcare system is structured. It's actually forcing us to do other things that allow us to feel more fulfilled and serve in the way that we wanted to serve in the first place while we're studying medical school and residency. But lo and behold, we finish our training, we complete everything, and we're like, yes, we're going to really make a difference. And then we feel stuck and trapped in this system that focuses on the dollar and treatment of disease, which is important. but less of a focus on preventing disease, being proactive with our health and reversing disease. You know, many people don't know that we can reverse disease.
Please. A
Oh,
lot of people, so preach.
yes, we can reverse disease. And that's one of the things that I started with my coaching is you can reverse, specifically it was pre-diabetes and diabetes. I remember I had a patient who would drink 1 liter of soda a day, did not go to the doctor, but ended up coming to the doctor because he needed clearance for his dental procedure. So, of course, I went through the evaluation, we did labs for him and everything. He came back with the diagnosis of diabetes. So he had to go on insulin just because of how high he was at for his A1C. But of course, I told him how to eat more plant-based. I just gave him the whole lifestyle change strategy. And he came off of insulin, off of his meds. He lost a bunch of weight because it can be done. We have the power. We have to know that we have the power within us. That is the first part. If we don't know that we can, then we have that limiting belief. And so we live our lives with that experience of not being able to because we believe we can't.
He was also open to the change. Mhm.
That is key too, right? You have to be open to doing the work.
Yeah. Doing the work is a constant daily thing, day in and day out. And like you said earlier, of course, it all begins with the mindset and our willingness to thrive. I love that word so much.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what would you say to the young people now who are looking to go into the medical profession? My daughter is pre-med. She's going into the neuroscience program and she wants to be a doctor one day. And she's got other friends too who are looking to do the same. So what advice would you give to the kids who are just starting out now, going into the first, second year of undergrad?
I would say that it's so important to be open minded, right? We just spoke about that. We need to be open minded. Going into the healthcare field is not just becoming a doctor, right? So exploring different avenues within the healthcare system, I think is important. The other thing is really getting down to the core of why do you want to be a doctor? Why specifically a doctor? And being more general, why do you want to go into the healthcare system? Right? And then finding a mentor or mentors is what I would say. Because, you know, we go into medicine for a specific reason. And so we're just thinking about that. But we also have to think about long term, like, what do I want my lifestyle to be? We don't think about that when we're going into medicine initially. We don't. What is the lifestyle that I want? So I would say that thinking about your 1 year plan, your 5 year plan, and your 10 year plan in terms of your entire life. You want to have a family? You want to travel? Do you want to volunteer? You need to think about all of those things, and a mentor can help you with that.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. We don't realize sometimes that the allure of the title can really have an impact on our lifestyle. And when you go into very high demand professions, you have to sacrifice the lifestyle. Sometimes
Yes,
that really
yes,
messes with your mind and causes a lot of stress, and then you're back to square one, really trying to figure out how to become more self-aware. And before you know it, you're stuck in this cycle. But it's important for everybody to understand that no matter what you do, you have to think about that lifestyle and what you want it to be like, because we are a high anxiety, high stress society. And really, that's nowhere to live. Nowhere, I should say. That's no way to live. And for people who come from another country, it's very evident, and we know that we don't want that. I was born in Peru, you were born in Jamaica. The lifestyle is different, the community is different. There's happiness and joy in the little things as opposed to the big things that everybody here strives for. So just understanding that culturally, but it's not too late. It's never too late to take a step back and think, okay, what do I want my lifestyle to be like? And how do I take the steps toward getting there? Who do I need to talk to? Do I need to improve my health? Do I need to improve my mindset, my physical fitness? What do I need to do to get there? And how do I cut back on all the things that cause that high level of stress? So I appreciate that you, as a medical professional, has gone a little bit deeper because it is going deeper when you think about it, taking that holistic approach. Now, tell everybody, Dr. Catherine, what are you most excited about as the year comes to an end? And what are we looking forward to in 2024? We know we have your book to look forward to. What else are you looking forward to?
Yes, yes. So I am excited about just speaking on more stages. So I'm really excited about that. I'm actually adding on an additional program, so coaching program. So in addition to helping those who are struggling with their illness, I've had so many colleagues and professionals, health professionals come to me to say, you know, how do you do what you do? And, I'm struggling here. So I also am helping health professionals who are feeling unfulfilled in their current job or career and allowing them to have more clarity about what they truly want. Is it where they are, or is there something else that they really want to do, but maybe they don't know how to do it, or maybe they're fearful of stepping into the unknown. So guiding them along that path is something that I'm super excited to be helping them with.
Oh my goodness, it's really transforming the entire profession, one professional at a time. And
Mhm.
it takes that, you have that leadership mindset for sure, and that willingness to help not just your patients, but your colleagues, because what you said there, that word fulfillment, that's everything.
Mm,
That's everything. You can go into doing anything in the world as a profession, but if it's not fulfilling you, you're not going to feel good about it. You're not going to have that joy and that drive no matter what. And I believe that for you, that might have been a driving force because doing what you do fulfills you, and you weren't going to let kidney disease stop you, dialysis stop you, because it's so ingrained and so powerful to you. And that's your purpose, is to continue to do for others. And I love that about you. And I really, really do hope that everybody who's listening and watching thinks about that, whether or not they feel fulfilled. And if they don't, it's okay. You can find that. You can work toward getting there. So we can always start where we are. Dr. Catherine, tell everybody where they can find you, how can they best follow you, contact you, support you, etc.
Yeah, so I try to make it very easy. So on Instagram, you can find me at Dr. K Tap. That's DRK Tap. And the same thing on Facebook, Dr. K Tap, LinkedIn. And, if you have any questions, just send me a message. You can find me. And if there's anything that you're struggling with, if you know someone who is struggling and you know that they need help, that's the other thing I want to mention, Mary, is that we don't have to do this alone.
Yes. And that's the key right there.
Mhm.
We're not alone. And I'm glad that you said that, because sometimes people think that certain people are unapproachable or that maybe they're too busy for us. And I always say on this podcast, just reach out. You have the calendar link there in the show notes. You're going to have Dr. K-Tap's information, also all her links on there. So please don't hesitate to reach out. The only question that doesn't get answered is the question that doesn't get asked.
And that's why you have this podcast, right, Mary? This amazing podcast so that we can have conversations that are going to uplift and encourage other people and let them know that they're not alone. So thank you for having this podcast.
Thank you for being here. Is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with? Any piece of advice or a mantra that you have or a word of encouragement?
Yes, I do. Let's see if I can remember it. You have the power within you. You just have to find a way to let it out.
Love that. And one way to let it out is to reach out.
Good one. Good one. Yes.
You don't know what you know until you know. That's just the way
Exactly.
it is.
And I like to say, you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. Exactly. So thank you so much for being so patient and for being here, for being a wonderful, wonderful person, and for sharing your light with us. So thank you for being on Get Intentional with Mary.
Thank you, Mary, for having me. Been a joy.